I'm Trey.
And I'm Derek. Greetings, peace, everybody. Thank you for joining the podcast today. Today is a bonus episode. We're going to be taking a look at the 60s as a whole. We're going to take a look back and try to get some context, a little perspective for what Gen X was raised in. And in order to, everybody is a product to some degree of their environment. And so we're going to try to get a handle on what the environment was like as the decade turned over to the 70s. We're going to do a quick overview. We're going to look at sort of the socio-political situation that was happening at the time, some of the political and cultural movements that were going on the ground, quick look at the economic situation of the time. And then we're really going to dive into the pop culture, which is the main focus of this podcast. We're going to be looking at the music that was going on during that time. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the influential films of the 60s and some of the influential television shows. And we're going to wrap up with a quick discussion about fashion. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. You ready, man?
Oh, yeah. All
right. An overview of the 60s in general. The 60s, it was primarily known as the countercultural revolution. It was a revolution in social norms about clothing, music, drugs, sex, schooling. Or some people actually looked at the 60s as a time of irresponsible excess, flamboyance, and decay. The 60s were labeled as the swinging 60s because of the fall or relaxation of social taboos, especially relating to racism and sexism that occurred during this time. It was also described as a classical nightmare, the 60s were. Mm-hmm. It was called like a rigid, let me back up. It was also described as a classical nightmare cycle where a rigid culture, unable to contain the demands for greater individual freedom, broke free of the social constraints of the previous age through extreme deviation from the norm. All right. Mm-hmm. The confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union dominated the politics during the 60s, with that struggle expanding into developing nations like Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And it was characterized by proxy wars, funding of insurgencies, and a lot of puppet governments jumping off at the time. In response to the civil disobedience campaigns from groups like SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, President John F. Kennedy pushed for social reforms, but Kennedy's assassination in 1963 was a big, huge shock. A lot of liberal reforms were finally passed by his predecessor, Lyndon B. Johnson, including the Civil Rights Bill for African Americans, healthcare system for the elderly and the poor. But despite his Great Society program reforms, Johnson was increasingly reviled. I mean, kind of say it's the birth of the modern Democratic-Republican split because Southern Democrats bailed and became Republicans, big time with Johnson. The heavy-handed American role in the Vietnam War outraged student protesters around the globe, and they kind of blamed that on Johnson. And finally, one of the big highlights from the 60s, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and the anti-Vietnam War movement and the police responses toward the protesters of the 1968 Democratic National Convention kind of defined a politics of violence in the United States. So those were some of the key highlights that I had for the 60s. How do these things land with you, man?
Well, I mean, yeah. For me, my friends, our community in Decatur growing up in the 60s, it was...
I should age check real quick.
Yeah, so 60s was my pre-teen years.
You were born in 59.
59.
Right.
Born in 59, so 60s was, growing up and being aware of your surroundings.
Right.
Like I plainly remember, and I was only 4 years old, but I remember John F. Kennedy's, it's plain as day.
Right. Right.
Well,
I mean, that's like one of those "where were you at" moments.
Oh man, and not so much Evers, which was that same year,
63. Yeah, Jim Medgar Evers was 63.
And I know why, because the little TV box we had wasn't talking about Evers as much as they were talking about Kennedy.
Right.
Right. For me, that year, 63, all I remember is Kennedy and Superman. Black and white. That was pretty much what was on TV.
Right. What about this this whole pushback that the 60s was irresponsible, or you guys were responsible for the decay of society? We're gonna get into it a little bit later, but the hippies was coming around. Every rigid, squares versus cool cats.
Right. And to me, for me, I don't grasp that, because we had strong leaders in the 60s in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had all these people. I think the decline started with all these assassinations.
Yeah, for real. We're going to cover that next.
Right. I mean, it was a decade of leaders being torn down and killed.
Right.
Which eventually, like anything else, starts to affect the rest of the pyramid,
Right.
And then, and like you're saying, and then you start seeing the crumbling of all the work that had been done prior to the 60s. Like I said, I felt like the leaders that I had brought up, even in Decatur, I mean, all the fathers, all the uncles, brothers, cousins, and just general mentors in the neighborhood and from the churches, they were still all about it.
Right.
It was still all about it.
Right.
I don't think we grasped it. Like you're saying, we started falling under the magic of the 60s as far as TV and all that, and then it gradually, 70s just took us over,
So you talk about the leaders. How deep did SNCC and SCLC, how big, did they penetrate to the hood? I mean, I know they were big national stories, but like, did they make it all the way down to the neighborhood level?
Yeah. I mean, I think, they really did, because their literature and their philosophies were shared throughout the nation.
Right.
What they thought, what was bad was the perception that because you were leaving the South,
mm-hmm.
that you still didn't embrace all that.
Right.
Because, you had that great migration in the 50s, right before this, of people leaving down South.
Right. Everybody left the South.
Oh, yeah. Just to search for a better life. But our community did not abandon everything that they were taught down South. They remember where they came from.
Yeah.
So I think that still resonates through how we.
So you're saying all the protests and things, even though they were happening down in the South in Georgia and whatnot, because of the migration, it still resonated because everybody still had roots. I mean, I went down to Tennessee every summer. I mean, that was like summer camp for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, some things, some mannerisms, some political ideas, some religious ideas still stay with us to this day.
Yeah.
That were ingrained in us from the 60s.
Right.
Right. From when you were a child.
Right. All right.
I'm almost 60 years old. I still say yes, sir, yes, now.
Yeah. Yeah, you still got manners.
Right.
Hold up just one sec.
Yep.
Oh, okay. It's Larry. Hold on.
Hey, my brother, what's going on?
Okay.
What's happening?
Oh, baby, it's all good.
So you got about 10 minutes with me, Luke?
Yeah, I got 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the quick overview. This whole podcast is going to be looking back at the pop culture of Generation X from a black perspective. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go the big picture. I'm going to do 30 episodes. Going to cover 1970 all the way up to 2000. Okay.
Okay.
So that 30-year period, we're just going to do one episode and cover each year. However, before we get started, I need to get some sort of context for what the year 1970 was like. So what I'm doing is I'm interviewing you and Trey to get context on what the 60s was like. You see what I'm saying?
Because we old. Right. Because we old.
All right. So I'm going to take it from the top. I'm going to do this general overview. I'm going to take it from the top again. I'm going to cover about 6-7 points. I'm going to run through them all at once. Stop me if you want to make a comment, but I'm going to run through them all at once, and then I'll double back and ask you what landed with you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So the 60s in general were defined by the counterculture and a revolution in social norms about music, drugs, sex, schooling. It was also defined by some people as an irresponsible time of excess, flamboyance, and decay of social order. The 60s were also labeled the swinging 60s because of the fall or relaxation of social taboos relating to racism and sexism that occurred during this time. It was also described as a nightmare cycle where a rigid culture that was unable to contain the demands for greater individual freedom broke free of the social constraints of the previous age through extreme deviation from the norm. The confrontations between the United States and the Soviet Union dominated the geopolitics of the 60s, with that struggle expanding into developing nations like Latin America, in Africa, and Asia, and these struggles were characterized by proxy wars and puppet governments. In response to civil disobedience campaigns from groups like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, President Kennedy pushed for social reforms. But Kennedy's assassination in 1963 took the country was shocked. The country was shocked by his assassination. Liberal reforms were finally passed under his predecessor, Lyndon B. Johnson, including civil rights for African Americans, health care for the elderly and the poor. Despite Johnson's large-scale Great Society programs, he was increasingly reviled, basically abandoned by his Democratic political the Southern Democrats. They basically all left the Democratic Party and became Republicans, which is the kind of the birth of today's political divisions. And he was very heavily criticized for. Hello? Oh. He was really heavily criticized for his. Hold on, I got the phone call that's interrupted me here. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold up. So I was Jeff's going to join us here in a minute. So I was talking about.
And man, I'm gonna have to break off in a little bit, man.
I know. Don't worry about it.
Yeah okay, they already called me. Okay.
So the assassination of Martin, the last highlight, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the anti-Vietnam War movement, and the
You didn't play that in the 60s.
How does this work, man? How do I answer that? Okay.
You didn't.
No, we didn't play no shit like that in the 60s. Tell you that. I don't give a damn how it was.
All right. So we're talking about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the anti-Vietnam War movement, and the police responses toward the protesters of the 1968 Democratic National Convention defined a politics of violence in the United States. So, Larry, Trey, we're joined by Jeff on Skype here. Cuz, can you hear us?
Hey, Jeff.
Hey,
Yo,
can hear you guys. I can't see you guys. Not doing video.
No, I can't. I ain't got them right now. But Larry, so I know you got a boogie.
Yeah.
Give me some of your thoughts on what the 60s were like for you.
Well, the 60s, like, they were a tumultuous and turbulent time. It was a time of, like you say, great devices due to the Vietnam War, due to the civil rights movement, and also because it was a time of cultural change where it was really rough in the South,
right?
For the '60s, because they were trying to take and keep you back in that same old. I don't want to say slave mentality, but that same old privileged culture mentality. So we're a privileged culture, and we take and do what we want, and the rest of you guys can sit back and take what we're giving you.
That's what they were talking about. It was a rigid culture versus a very lax culture kind of a scenario.
Yes. Yeah, we've got several from Preacher Lawrence's friend. He tells a story, like you say, of being at the gym meal there in Brownsville, and having a disagreement about the amount of cotton that he had brought in, or what he felt he should be paid for, only to be taken run out or left a calling by the Klan.
Right.
And he says that that's when he took and left Brownsville.
Yeah.
Because they had threatened to come by and do something to him for disputing the amount of money that he was due for this here cotton that he had taken and brought in, sharecropping. That was still big back in the '60s, especially in Brownsville.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking.
Jackson, Tennessee, all that.
We were talking about that. Trey, you still with me?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, you know how you were saying, Trey, that that migration from the South up to the North, even though people left the South, they were still connected. So when like Snick and Stokely and Martin and everybody, even though the protests and the freedom rides and everything were happening in the South, it still resonated in the North, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, it shaped us.
Yeah, I mean, and you still got to think, forget the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was rising
right.
Up here then at that time too. So I mean, that just gave you another outlet to hey, you don't have to take and put up with what you used to put up with. You don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
You come on and join the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we'll show you how to be a new man, a black man.
Right. Civil disobedience for real.
Yeah. Man, I love you. I got to go. They're calling me again, man.
All right. Hey, you gonna be around? You gonna be around later on today? Yeah.
Yeah, sure will. I'll get back to you when I get off.
Okay. All right. Love you, man.
Okay. All right. Love you guys. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Peace. Yeah, and like he was just saying with Elijah Muhammad, all of his teachings are starting to come into play now.
Yeah, that's for real.
It's so funny because now all the white people would love to see us all go somewhere.
hey, cuz, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So, Trey, hold on just 1 second. I hope I don't lose you. I'm going to try to shoot Jeff an email. I can't believe I didn't send it to him earlier, but hold on.
Oh, good.
My bad. Everybody with me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, Trey, next we're going to cover the major assassinations that happened in the 60s. I'm going to read them off, and, just let me know what you think. 63, you had Medgar Evers, NAACP field secretary. Later that year, you had John F. Kennedy. I mean, that was the big one. 2 years later. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Medgar's, that was huge, but it was not as huge to the average young person like myself. I was very young then. Like I said, I was before. It didn't resonate with our community as much as I thought.
It was gruesome, man.
John F. Kennedy did, for the assassination of Kennedy. Like I said, still is fresh to me.
Right.
And
right. I mean,
that visual just hit me.
That Medgar
has, but Medgar, we didn't know the importance of Medgar Evers until we got older.
Till you got older. I hear you.
in Decatur, in Illinois.
Right.
As far as our jump.
Right. So then we had 65. You had Malcolm. You know, that was huge.
Malcolm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then we had 3 years later. You had Martin Luther King. He was assassinated. And then
those two.
Them two. Them was the one.
Malcolm was unbelievable.
Right.
And then, you know, that brought about a whole different change in Illinois. It was very significant because you got to remember Muhammad.
Chicago,
baby. I mean, so.
That's right up the street.
All these rumors were like really fresh.
Yeah, did the nation do it? Who did it? Was it the nation? Was it somebody else? Right.
It brought about a big change in the way people viewed Muslims.
Yeah.
Before that, Muslims were viewed as outstanding members in the community.
Right. Yeah.
It would be on every corner, indicated on every corner. Suit, bow tie, you know, the usual.
Yeah.
But, you know, selling the fish, bean pies, the final call.
Yeah.
But then after the assassination of Malcolm, you know, things got kind of scary. People started looking at the nation differently.
Yeah.
They started looking at them like in fear instead of
like y'all
going
here
to them
for help. Yeah. Instead of looking at them as kind of like the
protectors of the community.
Yeah.
That they were. So now we looking at them like, you know,
y'all might be the problem.
Yeah, who you with? You know, who you with?
Right, right.
Are you with us, the people, or do you have your own agenda?
Yeah, yeah. I remember Pops talking about Pops used to talk about the nation with mixed regard. You know, sometimes he would speak very highly of like the philosophical teachings, but he was kind of skeptical about certain, when you start getting down to like, well, what do you think about dude or this dude, that dude, so-and-so and so-and-so, he would be like, I don't know.
Well, see, and that's what brought it about. It was the assassination of Malcolm that really brought that divide.
Right.
Like what you said, man.
What about King's assassination?
Cat used to be about it, man, until that happened. And then with Marvin, it brought about, like I said, it brought about rage in our own communities, and then there was a lot of fear because we didn't know, people didn't know who to look to for leadership.
And then
anymore.
2 months after that, Robert Kennedy got popped
on TV. On TV, I remember. It was on TV, man, and I mean, it was on TV like. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
This dude standing at a podium talking.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
And he was like, he was supposed to be next, wasn't he?
He was someone that the black community felt could fill the void as far as what his brother had been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That he would take Martin's teachings and continue to at least take us in that same direction.
Right, right. He would keep the ball moving.
And Jesse just wasn't there.
Jesse nor Farrakhan. I mean, right on the heels. It took a minute, for the nation to shake itself out. So and Jesse's a whole nother thing, man.
Andrew.
Oh, Andrew Young down in Atlanta.
Yeah, Ralph. They didn't have the charisma.
See, Stokely Carmichael. He had the charisma and whatnot, but Stokely was different.
Stokely was straight up black power, man.
Yeah, I think he. I don't know. I really should know this, but I think he died. I don't know if Stokely's dead yet. I should know this. I'm gonna edit it out if I don't know what I'm talking about. but I think he died in the Caribbean or something. Like he boogied, man. He bailed, man. He was out.
Well, yeah, you bail too. Everybody around you is getting killed. Yeah, that brother was lucky he was out.
Yeah, for real. All right, so moving on. Next things up is we're going to cover some of the social and political movements that was happening at the time. So, of course, the big thing in the 60s, everybody was known as hippies, flower power. You had black power, you had flower power. This was in the second half of the decade, the young people, they started to revolt against the conservative norms. And they created movements toward liberation in society, including a lot of stuff that still got legs today. The sexual revolution, women's rights, gay rights. This movement was marked by widespread, socially accepted drug use, though, and psychedelic music. So, we'll double.
That's not true.
Oh, what?
That's not true. Yeah, but that's not true, though. I mean, it was. Hippies was doing it, but trust me, they were not. It was not something that was accepted. I'll tell you that damn sure.
Okay.
Especially in the black neighborhood, we couldn't stand no damn hippies.
Why not?
You gotta remember, back then, black people came from nothing, from being dirt poor. And then they got into this great migration. They got a chance to get up here and, you get a chance to have some style, man, and get dressed and,
right.
Ride around a pretty nice ride with what was considered nice rides.
Right.
Putting on your smell goods. And having been able to drink, like I know Cat would drink his Crown Royal. You could drink some Crown Royal. You could afford some Crown Royal shit.
Yeah.
And then here come these long-haired, smelly motherfuckers. And it's like, no, ain't nobody feeling that shit. Get the hell up out of here.
All right. Okay. Well, when you put it like that,
I was going to say it's not portrayed like that on the TV. That is not that '60s show that I saw on TV. It's not like that.
You'll notice there was never no black hippies. That just was not a thing.
That wasn't happening. Now, was that a racial thing or was that a cultural thing?
That's definitely racial. That's definitely racial.
Well, so you say hippies wasn't down with black people?
We didn't want that style to infiltrate our community.
You say we just got a chance to flash, and we ain't trying to go back to looking like we just rolled out of Tennessee, right?
Yeah, right? Fool, look, I got on Stacey Adams. You talking about you want me to go get some flip-flops?
Some flip-flops. I knew you were flip-flops. Yeah, okay. I think every 60s portrayal shows a white dude with long hair, purple glasses, tattoos. And flip-flops.
You got that leather vest rocking the with the strands. What is this? What is the phrase? The phrase, Jeff? What is that stuff called? Tassels.
Oh, look, you got elephant collars. You got brothers with the skinny ties.
Yeah,
Stacey Adams.
Right.
Stack.
Getting fresh.
Bell bottom.
Getting
Ain't
fresh.
Nobody wearing all that other crap.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's keep it moving. The anti-war movement. The war in Vietnam, big cloud over the 60s. And it would eventually lead to commitment of over 500,000 American troops. I mean, the anti-war movement was big, and I think it still permeates in the black community because I remember Pops was telling me, Jeff, and I mean, I don't know how you missed it, but I mean, I do kind of know how you missed it, but I don't. Pops was like, "Dude, you can't never go to the war, to the army. You ain't never gonna let you get sent over there to die for these white people." He was,
right.
He just really instilled the anti-war movement. Just really dominated his view of the military, And I think it just really resonated. That's why I have a mixed relationship with the military right now to this day.
No, I understand. Me too. Definitely for us, we didn't know. We thought life was going to be like this. In the 60s, once the 60s was over, we felt like, towards the end of the 60s, we felt like we had to be prepared to be drafted. If we could get ourselves in a situation where we were going straight to college, we felt like that was going to be it. That was going to be the road.
Right.
Because everyone around us was, getting drafted, cousins and
right,
schools and all that, and or they were deciding to go in themselves. But the reality is what Kat was saying. We see people coming back, and when they come back, they be so messed up.
Right.
And still treated like
crap.
Man, yeah, I mean,
like
you know what was even worse though is if you came back hurt, you were seen different by your own people, and then white people treating you bad too. So
why was that? Why would black people see you different? Why would your own community see you as different?
Because nobody knew how to accept it. Now you're this killing machine, right?
Okay.
And then the truth is, nobody came back really still the same person. They were different, man.
Yeah.
Stuff they couldn't talk about.
Right.
Scars, amputations.
So it was on both sides of it. Both sides of the equation were feeling things just had changed with this person.
Man,
okay.
I had a cousin named Richard. He came back. Me and him used to be so cool, but he came back, man. He was, he was older than me, about 4 years older than me. He came back with a metal plate in his head, and for a lot of the black community, that seemed to be the biggest thing going on was all these metal plates.
Uh-huh.
You come back with these metal plates in your head. And for a while, it seemed like it was a conspiracy because that was like the biggest. It's like, what the hell? What is this metal plate thing? You know what I'm saying? But and they come back and they would be, for us back then growing up, it was just gone straight crazy.
Right.
You didn't know who you were talking to.
Right. Just different.
Yeah. I mean,
the
military,
the medication or pain or the experience itself, or a combination of, but that person would go from one thing to another right before your eyes, man, and you'd be like, what the fuck?
Right. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. I was going to say, the military, it conditions you to react a certain way to certain things. And I think for me, back then, my perspective, it was different. It was like the Army, they going in to, kill people with tanks and all these other stuff. The Marines, they going in to do all these other different things. It's also, killing. You train to be a killer. But, from my perspective, going to school and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, I'm going into the Air Force, and none of what I was trying to get involved in and with my grades and everything else had to do with, physically killing anybody. It was all technology and computers and stuff. That's what I was into.
So you wasn't going off to become a killing machine. You was going off to get teched up.
Yeah, I was going off to get school, and I figured if there's going to be any killing, I'm going to be far away controlling some computers, giving people information who's doing the killing. I'm not going to be doing the killing. So my perspective on it was what I was getting into was different. But once once you say that oath and you go to basic training and stuff, it's completely different than what you expect. It's more you are trained to do what you were told to do. You were trained to accomplish this mission.
Yeah.
There was nothing else of importance in your life,
right,
other than what we are training you to be able to accomplish.
Right. But
So,
you didn't get any grief from anybody? I mean, none of the elders, none of the old heads gave you grief?
my mom was more, she was more afraid of what could happen,
Right.
as opposed to trying to talk me out of it per se.
Okay.
And in Lawrence, he was more, he was pretty simple. He was like, what are you going out there to fight another man's war for? What are you going out there to kill other motherfuckers for when, they ain't done shit to you? It's just, he was just breaking it down real simple. And I was like, it's
it ain't like that.
That's one way of putting it. It's not quite that simple.
Like, I don't know how to tell you this, cuz, but it ain't the 60s no more, man.
Yeah, I was like, that's not going to be my job. And he was like, well, they going to tell you what your job is. I'm like, technically that's true, but I'm not joining to do that job.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was hard trying to explain that to him. And then, he would go through, I remember I went to the recruiter one time and he went, I think my mom wanted him to come and talk me out of it, or something like that. And Lawrence was like, is he going to be doing this and doing that?
Right.
Because if he is, you need to just tear this paper up right the fuck now, because he's not doing that shit. And if I got to come down here, he was tripping, man. It was crazy. Man, and I was like embarrassed.
Yeah.
But, I knew what he was trying to do. And he was like, no, sir, he's, look at these grades. He scored this. He's not going to be doing that. This is what he's going to be doing. I guarantee it. And I was like, he was like, yeah, I don't really trust you, motherfucker.
I don't trust none of y'all. Dude, I brought the recruiter over to the house. Hey, Trey, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, I don't know if this is how I wound up in Denver. I brought I graduated high school, brought the recruiter. I think it was a Marine recruiter. He was some cat from downtown. He caught me walking down the street one day, caught me up, scooped me up. I was like, okay, well, come on by the house and, break it down. Because at that time, I think I was still 17 or whatever. And Pops let him in. He sat down at the dining room table, let him do his whole nine. And he's looked at him and said, well, if I got to sign anything, he ain't going nowhere. and a week later, I came home and he was like, one of them Taylor boys up the street is going out to Denver next week. Pack it up. You going with him. Pack it up. You out. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I brought a Marine recruiter to the crib.
Wow.
Oh shit!
I did not know that.
Yeah, you don't get much more anti-war than Pops, man. But all right. So next up, civil rights movement, real quick. That was obviously huge. I mean, it goes without saying. You had the Montgomery bus boycott, the sit-ins in North Carolina, the Selma Bridge March, Montgomery March in Alabama. Trey, how did all that stuff land back home?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, man. I used to, my grandmother used to take me to what was called Gray Y. We had a thing called Gray Y back in the day. I don't know if you guys had that.
No,
Gray Y was like the after school program for elementary kids and stuff.
Did you have it, Joe?
Nah, I went home. Grandma was there.
For real?
It was so cool, man. They were trying to teach us how to swim. They called it Gray Y because each school would have a color, and Woodrow Wilson was gray. And the Y was, of course, for YMCA.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, YMCA was popular back then. They would come pick us up after school and all that, take us down there. So it was a Saturday, and my grandmother took me down there to the Y downtown Decatur. And, we was riding on them old buses and get down there to the old city transfer house.
Mm-hmm.
And plain as day, man, I remember it. Had a sign out there that said colored. This is probably 65.
Uh-huh.
And that just lets you know. It let you know that it wasn't that long ago, for real.
No, for real.
That
For real.
that this stuff was just still just so relevant and prevalent in our lives every day.
And it's stuff like that is why I actually do understand why the older cats like you and Larry, the cats who's just right above us, still trip so hard off of Trump and what the politics is doing about the pushback against the discrimination, the segregation in society, because it wasn't like you said. You remember from your childhood. You kind of like life's got to be like a roller coaster.
It's ridiculous, to see
the progress and the regress.
What we thought was going on in the 50s, well, in our 60s, while we growing up. We're trying to embrace this, and our parents are embracing the fact that they can just now use damn vote.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They've had a voice for forever, their whole life.
Right.
They could actually get up and get out the South, but they still couldn't vote.
Right.
They couldn't vote until then. So they were still putting up with all this shit, man.
I got to tell you, man, and for real, it's so lost. I mean, it's so lost on so much of the youth. But you take things for granted. I get that. But I can't tell you how irritated I get when black folks talk about they don't vote. I'm like, dude, you don't even know that. I mean, for real, dude. I mean, do you just sit back and contemplate the sacrifices that everybody did to give you that right, and now you just like, I ain't doing it. I'm like, oh my God.
You know how I don't think we really embrace how bad it really is, because I have sat in, it's still a staple to sit in a black barbershop, and hear people's thoughts. And when I hear, like you just said, I hear a young brother in his 20s, early 30s, and some of them very educated.
Yeah.
I'm talking about some young brothers that are doctors.
Right.
And they like 30s and will sit up and say they won't vote. And I'm like, I just can't embrace that. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
It's too many sacrifices. Too many sacrifices.
We really did have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Too many sacrifices, man.
And how you gonna make change if you just sitting around complaining to other brothers and they ain't doing shit about it? That don't make no sense to me.
I'd agree. I think
just forming this huge ass group of complaining motherfuckers that don't just get up on your ass and really do something. And that just does not make sense to me.
No.
So you
go
ahead, John.
What blows my mind is like Barack Obama could not have gotten elected his first term unless enough people voted.
Right.
So
to
me, I don't see how when he first got elected the first time, how that could not be a more crystal clear indication of the power of the vote.
Of the vote, right.
So I just it's hard for me to comprehend that people
voting works.
For all these years.
Voting works.
All these years, it's been nothing but white men.
Right.
And for that to finally change, that wasn't magical.
No.
People voted to make it happen. So that concept, it does blow my mind that people don't think that your vote counts when that is the clearest day indication that your vote counts.
See, they gonna make me say something really bad about black folk.
But you just touched on what I think is our worst
characteristic.
Is that we're complacent.
Yeah, man.
We're so complacent, man. So you got to that plateau.
You know what? You know what? See, now
you get Jesse Jackson in Chicago Park crying like babies, and I'm thinking, y'all know this man got to fight every white person in Congress now. It ain't gonna be no magic. He in there,
right?
But if we don't continue to back him, it ain't gonna be shit he can do.
Ain't nothing he can do. He ain't a king,
right?
But we got to be careful though. We got to be careful because I agree with you 100%. Black folks too complacent. Complacent ain't that far from the stereotype of being lazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like in the same neighborhood of being lazy.
Yep.
And that is the stereotype of black folk.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, I think that's also I think also because of technology and instant gratification is just prevalent in this age, man. I mean, we grew up in the context of the phone is ringing. I don't know who that person is,
right.
but the phone is ringing. Right. I have to get up physically to go find out who is calling me. Whereas now,
I got to get up to go turn the TV.
Yeah. It's like nobody has that. They just don't have that concept. They they look at their phone. They're like, I see who this is. I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
And that's it. We couldn't comprehend doing that. It's a whole different mentality of instant gratification. These things are just given to me, and I have the choice of whether I can or cannot or should not do them or not. And it's portrayed in TV as well with some of these shows. Whereas it gives, like you said, it gives you that sense of complacency. It gives you that sense of, I don't have to do anything.
I don't have to do anything. I don't need to disrupt myself.
Yeah. I can sit on this computer and see anything going on the planet. I don't got to watch TV.
And you know what? We do got to keep it moving. But Janina and I, we talk about that a lot, how I think that saps not only our drive to get up and, participate socially, but I think it saps our imagination because, Trey, Jeff, if you really want to entertain yourself when you was a kid, you had to go outside.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, please.
You had to go outside and you had to turn that tree. You had to turn that tree into a rocket ship.
And when you go outside, there ain't no guarantee everybody else gonna be out there.
It's
you might
real.
have to just and think of stuff as
just
an individual.
Be outside.
Yeah.
Right? Man, that's get
Jeff,
a tennis ball and just go get a tennis ball and hit the brick wall, man.
Hey Jeff, how many times did we turn a front porch into a spaceship? You know what I'm saying? Or a pirate ship.
Woodrow and have war.
War. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
Look,
check this out.
Water balloon fights.
Man. You remember? Do you remember that sand tire that was in our backyard?
Yeah.
Man, we used to think that sand tire was like a whole continent. It would be so many of us playing at that sand tire.
Going back to the motherland.
Look here, man. I did not realize that I was a grown man that thing was a tire. I thought it was like a whole playground because everybody would be there.
Yeah, yeah.
All of us, and then Larry, Curtis, Nancy, Michelle, Alan.
Yeah. It was like traveling to another world. It really was. All right, so we gotta keep moving. So Trey, I can't really touch on this, but it's worth mentioning Hispanic and Chicano movements. Black power, brown power. Was there unity? Was we arm in arms?
It wasn't there yet.
Wasn't there yet?
Not in Decatur, not in our neighborhoods. I think more because of the unknown.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Plus, not only that, we're buried deep in the middle of the country. It's probably bigger out on the coast.
Yeah, right. Trey, I mean, who were Hispanic in Decatur? I didn't know any Hispanic people in Decatur.
I can't think of one. I'm trying to think right now. I can't.
Yeah,
there was a few. Trust me, there was a few people here and there.
What'd y'all do to them?
They were seen as outsiders because we didn't know what they were saying. So it's like, who's that? What they talking about? Blah blah blah. Everything was pretty black and white growing up.
Right.
Right. Pretty black and white, man. Anything outside of black or white was like, I don't think either side took to them too good.
Okay.
Where did they work though? In Decatur at that time. I mean, where did they work? I mean, I can think of multiple places my mom took me to, but I never saw a Hispanic person that I can cognitively remember. The first Asian person I met was when I went to the hospital, Decatur Memorial Hospital. My mom worked with another nurse. Her name was Lou. I think she was Filipino.
Right.
That was like my first exposure to a Filipino person.
Wow.
You know.
I think it was like one or two. One was on the west side, and they were considered. This lady was considered crazy, man, because I wanted to say people thought she was a gypsy. So there was an older lady who used to live there, and we used to call her a witch. And we used to say, if you look at her, you'll get a spell cast on you. And shit, man, let me tell you something. People used to get on her nerves so tough. She sat on the porch with her damn double-barrel shotgun. And if you ask, mess with her too much, she'd pull that bad boy up. And it'd be like, damn.
Y'all gonna learn something today. Y'all gonna act right now.
Hey, but I think it was a language barrier.
Right.
It was a language barrier.
Right. And I mean, and like you say, culture. I mean, language, the food. I mean, it just wasn't enough to really. It was too foreign, probably, and when we grew up. Yeah, I'm with you.
Needless to say, she got out of the hood. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. So another social movement jumping off, second wave feminism. Ladies started really organizing in the 60s. It was that was like the beginning of the National Organization of Women. Women's liberation became a big household term. I still remember the big Now posters from when I was a kid. How big of an impact did women's rights, how big of an impact did women's rights have on you guys, Trey?
Say that again now.
The women's rights movement. How big of an impact did it have on you guys? Did Veronica go out there and burn her bra?
Man, look, you talking about the 60s, 70s?
60s.
Ah, brother, that wasn't happening in the black hood. That wasn't really going down. I'll tell you what was really happening. I mean, you had a few sisters that, were outrageous, like Angela Davis.
Right.
But in the real world, up in Decatur, all that women's rights shit, that wasn't going down.
It wasn't going down. Okay.
Not yet. It wasn't happening.
Now, was it because of? Okay, so now, real quick though, was that because sisters didn't care, or were they being like oppressed and shut out by the brothers?
Of course.
Okay. Okay.
No, brothers wasn't having that shit. They wasn't feeling that yet.
Okay.
The brothers were still trying to, we were still trying to be the strong men we needed to be and make shit happen for the black community in the first damn place.
Right. So
all that shit about women's rights wasn't going on. How you gonna have women's rights when the black man ain't got no damn rights? That wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah, that was the mindset back then, right?
Yeah, that was.
But was the sisters, were they aware of what was jumping off? Did Veronica and Michelle and everybody, were they hip to what was happening? I mean, I know y'all were kids and all that, but
they would repeat that shit, but wasn't nobody listening.
Okay, all right.
But, not no brothers. We trying to. We still trying to figure our shit out. We ain't got time to be trying to help y'all with that bullshit. That's some white folks talking.
Now I'm not trying to get you in trouble, right? You know this, right?
Oh no, that's the damn truth. Shit.
Yeah, just keeping it real, man.
Okay.
And I can understand that. I mean, I think if there was so many hindering factors for the black man at that time, let alone a black woman trying to get up to the level, when it's just I could see that just being an uphill battle on all kinds of different facets.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I understand, especially in Decatur.
Yeah.
It wasn't time yet. It wasn't time. Not for black. And the only reason Angela was out there so tough is because she was doing the same thing the brothers was doing.
Yeah, she was shooting them up.
You got a sister talking about being independent and helping with the Black Power movement. Okay, that's different. She's sexy. I mean, she's in the fight. She in the fight. But if you got a sister just talking about women's rights for women's rights. It's like, sister, you're not even acknowledged as a woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough.
I mean,
it's tough. Honestly,
yeah,
you know, I got a lot of sympathy for the sisters, because if you think about the pecking order of social movements, right?
right.
This is just off the top of my head. You know, first in line is going to be the white man. Next in line is
Right.
going to be the white woman.
Right.
After that, it's a scramble, but you know, black men kind of work their way in there. Then you might actually go to brown men, or Asian men. After that, then come the sisters. Sisters
Right.
are like, they're down there, and but they're catching all the hell that everybody else catching.
Well, I think that's changing now.
They catching double hell, because they getting it from the society in general, and the brothers ain't treating them right, or like just ignoring them or whatever. But they catching it doubly from society.
Now you take that same structure you just talked about. I think, to me, in my world today, the sister is above me.
No, I'm talking about. I give sisters all the credit in the world, because I think their fight has been. I think a lot of people can learn from the struggle that black women have gone through. But I mean, back in the '60s.
Oh, back in the '60s, yeah.
Back in the '60s,
they didn't stand a chance back in the '60s.
They didn't stand a chance, man. Did not stand a chance. So,
and you're absolutely right. It's horrible, but you're right. But you got to remember, we were still considered not even human beings.
Yeah. No, it was a hard time for everybody. Which leads us to the next group of people, and I'm pretty sure this is a short answer. Did the gay rights movement have any impact on the hood?
No, man.
Okay.
No, and
it started jumping off in the '60s. I mean, nationally, the gay rights movement got started, and kind of got its feet.
I'll tell you what, not in Decatur.
No, okay.
Back then, that was still taboo.
Right.
Big time.
Right.
Big time.
Big time.
If you were considered gay, you was an outcast.
Right.
If you been flamboyant with it, you might get killed.
Right.
Back then.
I remember when like dudes finally started rocking earrings. I don't know. I was like maybe early teenager, middle teen. I thought it was odd, man. I really did. I thought it was odd. I was like, what are you saying?
You gotta do it a certain way. You gotta remember that.
Yeah.
For a brother to be cool with that, it had to be a stud, and it had to be in the left ear only.
Okay.
Couldn't be nowhere else.
Okay.
Now, if you weren't anything else,
it meant something
and you
else.
wearing the right side, that was a sign.
Okay.
People carry flags and all that shit. I mean, it's the same thing back then.
Yeah.
If you got your studs, you're good.
But now check this out though, Trey. I mean, you had to know of gay people growing up.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
You always knew, but they would never admit it publicly that they were.
No, okay, so let's keep it real though. Did you know closet gay? Did you know people who were gay in the closet? You know what I'm saying? And like, how were they? How was that? I mean, I know you can't come. I know it's hard, coming out of the closet wasn't socially acceptable at all. But like everybody knows somebody who's gay.
Oh yeah, I mean, but back then, I'm telling you, they didn't really start coming out until the '70s, around mid '70s. In the '60s, they were still hiding it. The older guys definitely were hiding it. Like if you were from Tennessee,
oh yeah,
and you came up there and you preaching and all that, you still hiding it. You got a wife, you probably got kids,
right?
But eventually, you know, things would happen and it'd get out there and it'd get in the community and your life would essentially be over.
Yeah.
Because you had been living a lie, right?
Yeah. It's all, you know, it is. It's almost like, dude, you'd have been better off just being up front.
You've been better off doing it up front, and you've been better off not being in a place like Decatur.
Okay. All right. Well, that's true.
They just didn't accept it, man. They didn't accept it good. It was always, you know, fights for kids growing up.
Right. Okay, so let's jump forward real quick because I don't know.
I was going to say,
when do you think it was
afraid of getting an earring?
Yeah.
Because of that. That's why I ain't got no piercing. I was like, I ain't getting no earring. I don't want to get in the wrong ear. I was definitely afraid.
I didn't even understand right or wrong ear.
Yeah, that's tribal stuff. I mean, that's from Africa.
Right.
You know, getting a piercing and how you get that piercing signifies certain things.
Okay, so now let's jump forward to, I don't know, because I'm not sure if this is covered really later on for this podcast. When did the tide change? When did it become? Because I think I know people who are still afraid to be open about it, even in Decatur. You know what I mean? And so, but I think, you know, in society as a whole, it's much more. It's totally acceptable to be openly gay. Even with black people, and a lot of people point to when Barack, you know, came out and endorsed gay marriage. That's kind of like he like single-handedly shifted the balance for black thought. I don't know if that's true, but because Black Thought, I think, had been ahead of him. I think he's a result of Black Thought. I don't think he changed Black Thought.
I think, man, people gonna always feel the way they feel. I've only grown accustomed to it through all my work in the arts.
Right.
I have to work with gay people.
Right.
So I was able to accept them better. But growing up, they were always fags, you know.
Yeah.
Don't come near me. Don't say nothing to me. Eventually, I got over all that. I think it comes with time and your idealism. Yeah, but if you're taught from day one,
maturity and exposure.
If you're taught as a child, gay is wrong. Just like white folks are teaching, you know, hate niggas.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, man. It's the same damn thing. That's just an ingrown bias that you know. You don't know why.
No, you don't know.
No,
that's
it's
true.
just another way of teaching hate. That's all it is.
But I think overall, it's gotten. I mean, I think it kind of changed maybe in the 90s. Jeff, what you think?
I was going to say, because my mom told me that she basically said gay people love people differently. There's nothing wrong with how they love people. They just do it differently than straight people.
Well, that's cool.
That was basically what she told me. So my perspective on a person being gay, because you remember Edgar Green? Bay, as we used to call him, his brother Kevin was gay, and you know, then I looked up gay meant happiness, you know, it meant happy in the dictionary. And every time I saw Kevin, he was always happy. I was like, oh wow, you know, I never had a negative connotation to
never put the
gay.
sexual thing on it.
Yeah, it just that just never, you know, was like an issue in my perspective. And then when I joined the military, you know, the perspective was different because of the situations you could be in. And they made it seem like if you were in this situation with a gay person, it could cause a problem.
Right.
So that was kind of trained in you as well. But then I think, I want to say when I was in Japan, that was when Clinton did that change.
I'll tell you an incident. Yeah. So I had an incident. I went, you know, like we talked about, house parties was a big thing.
Right.
House parties, big, you know, go to a house party. You know, here I am, I'm this dude, the big fro, all this yicky yak, you know, I'm trying to get with these girls. And next thing I know, this gay dude hit on me.
Right.
And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, I had been drinking too. I automatically hit the dude, knocked him across the room, man.
Right.
Because I didn't know what I felt was like this dude trying to intrude on my manhood.
Right.
And you trying to look like a punk in front of my peers and these women. I ain't having it.
Right. Right.
I'm having it.
Like, you know, like I was saying at the beginning of this, the main reason why I wanted to get some idea of what the 60s was like is because everybody to some degree is a product of your environment. To some degree or another, the environment just shapes the way you might eventually grow out of that, or, you know, mature out of that, or experience your way out of that. But, you know, it's just when you're starting out, dude, you know, you kind of, if that's the way you was taught, that's the way you was taught.
It molds you as a person, but it doesn't carry you in that direction your whole life. You make choices to make different directions, but it does shape you as a person.
It sure does. All right. Last social movement that was jumping off, crime in the United States became like a big thing. You know, you have crime associated with the riots in Chicago, Detroit, LA, Jersey, Oakland, Cali, you know, DC. What was you know, and I actually think it kind of rolled over into the 70s and really affected us because that's kind of when the blaxploitation movie film industry kind of got geared up and really started pumping. Started kind of like what am I trying to say? Glamorizing the life of crime. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. But like, how did the riots and whatnot hit in the 60s, Trey?
Well, the riots were scary. Seriously. Riots, man, because everybody was just running up and down the streets, mad, you know.
Mad about
didn't know what to do. Yeah, you know, wanting to tear something up, but you couldn't tear up too much because it was ours.
Right.
Thank God, in Decatur, they had enough sense not to do that. But they did, you know, they formed big groups of people, you know, and just let off steam.
Right.
You know, continue to want to keep the movement going. But you're right. I mean, back in the 60s in Decatur, man, it was like Mayberry. It was like, you know, doors are wide open and you can go to somebody's house just walking in and shit.
Right.
You know,
it's a lot like Tennessee up north.
Oh yeah, you know, it wasn't nobody thinking about robbing each other because, you know, we all know each other.
Well, Curtis might have been thinking about robbing a few people. Curtis might have been ahead of the curve.
You know, like you said, he didn't get like that in the 70s, man.
All right.
I want to know, and I don't understand this still to this day, but I remember my junior year in high school, there was brothers I knew who would break into people's homes, eat their food, and leave their food half eaten and leave. And then I'd hear about them getting arrested because they left evidence at that house. Look, man. I did not understand that, man. What? They was bragging about it because I didn't understand that shit.
I tell you, because, you know, I went away for a few years, you know. I was, and I used to tell Janine all the time, it's like, you know, when I got sentenced, they didn't send me to MIT or Harvard because it ain't a bunch of smart people in jail, man. It's a bunch of dumb people in jail, for real. That's, you know, it's just criminals ain't that bright.
Right.
That's just the simple answer. Criminals just ain't, you know, they ain't the brightest bunch of people you'll ever meet.
Okay, that does answer that question. But it just blew my mind because I was just like, how is this something you are bragging about? I just don't understand how this is supposed to impress me. That you broke in his house, ate these people food, and you got caught. This makes no sense.
Makes no sense. If he was smart, he'd probably be on his way to Harvard as opposed to the state pen.
Yeah.
But okay, so.
But wait a minute, y'all do know the greatest story ever.